Hello and welcome to the Northeast Grazing and Livestock Conference. I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors, the National Grazing Lands Coalition, American Farmland Trust, Farm Credit East, Morrison Custom Feeds, Natural Resource Conservation Service, and the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets. Please take a moment to visit their virtual booths for more information about their work. I'd also like to thank our partners, the Cedar Tree Foundation and the Forrest C. and Francis H. Latner Foundation. They help make our work possible throughout the year. The entire New England Grazing Network would like to thank you for your participation in our first annual Northeast Grazing and Livestock Conference. Enjoy the conference.
For joining us today. My name is Jenn Colby. I am a diversified farmer in Central Vermont and an educator and also a podcaster. And as I have come across conversations with folks all over the place, I found more and more folks who are taking time away from the farm at different times of the year and in different ways. And what's quite amazing about that is it's really, this is not part of our traditional farming culture. We work all the time, right? We never take breaks, right? And so I wanted to put together a panel today to share the stories and have a conversation with some folks who are doing this in different ways. Folks who are making it a priority to spend time away from the farm or not farming even at their farm, doing other kinds of things. So I'll just get started with our lovely panel. We're going to let everyone introduce themselves. And let's just start with a general introduction about your location and your type of farm and maybe employee structure, a little bit of what you do. And I'm going to start with Jessica to introduce yourself.
Right. Sure thing. So my name is Jessica Newman. I have a 40-acre piece of property in Northeast Pennsylvania. I am basically like 5 miles over the New York border. So basically I can spit into New York. Wouldn't dare, but I could. And so I primarily have sheep and a very small herd of beef cattle, but I have about 80 head of sheep, and so run a seed stock and meat lambs. So that's me. I'm mostly solo. I don't have any employees. Just a few kind of sets of hands of help as I need it from some family and friends. So.
Thank you. Let's see, Garret. Let's go over to Garret next.
Hi, I'm Garret Thorn. We have a third generation dairy farm. We have a small farm, about 60 head of dairy cows in Litchfield County. It's Goshen, Connecticut, kind of up in the corner of Connecticut. What we do is we kind of have an old-fashioned system, old-fashioned dairy. And what we're doing with our product is we are using the milk, cream, and butter from our cows. And we are actually using that in making chocolates. My mother started doing that in the 90s, and we've continued it and grown and grown. We have about 5 full-time employees outside of family. And that's a little bit what we do.
Awesome, thank you. And Beth?
Hi, everyone. I am the co-owner, along with my husband, Bruce, of Maple Wind Farm, and we're in Richmond, Vermont, kind of in the northern part, outside of Burlington, Vermont. We are in our 25th farming season. We're first generation farmers. We raise pasture-raised livestock. We consider ourselves grass farmers. So we have grass-fed beef, pork. Our largest enterprise is our pastured broilers. Last year we raised 20,000. We did about 500 turkeys, and we have about 2,000 layer hens. So we've got a lot going on. We have 5 full-time salaried year-round folks that work with us. And then in the summer season, we kind of grow to about 18 employees. We're trying to focus on being mostly a retail operation. kind of turning away from being a wholesale operation for many of our years. And that's it in a nutshell.
Since I've got you on the line, Beth, and since you just came back from a break.
Yes.
Yes. So what kinds of breaks do you take from the farm? How often are they? How long are they? What kinds of things do you find yourself doing?
Well, I would say between April or May and Thanksgiving, or even up to Christmas, it's really hard to find a chunk of time to really take off, even though we have, as I mentioned, we have a lot of employees, but we have so many balls in the air that just to be the managerial staff, my husband and I, we usually try to take the time in the slower months. And yes, I'm very honored to have just come back from a week-long trip to Costa Rica. I did not travel with my husband. He's we kind of have to sometimes flip-flop our time away, which is fine. We have different interests in climates that we like to spend in vacation time. He'd rather be in 10 feet of snow when I would rather, not be in 10 feet of snow. So there's just a few things there where we don't meet in the middle, but we do find some times to take weekends away and visit relatives in New England. But it was really special to just take off last week and enjoy some, R&R. So I guess, yeah. We do, just to be clear, we do try to take 1 or 2 week-long vacations if we can.
Each year?
Yes.
Okay.
This year it's going to be maybe a little bit more. I mean, when you go to conferences and whatnot, that's not really considered a vacation. So we have it set up so that, we do have such wonderful employees that can cover kind of what we do on the farm. So that makes it really nice to, have a little bit more comfort zone to pull away from the farm when it's being cared for by awesome employees.
Wait, I thought we went to conferences so we could call those vacations. Kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Bruce is having a vacation in Texas right now. He's at the American Pasture Raised Poultry Association conference. So I think he's having a ball. Yeah.
Sometimes work travel can be fun.
Yes.
Okay. So Jess, what do you do? What do your breaks look like? And are they year round? Are they just certain seasons? How does that work for you?
Absolutely. So for me, it is a little different, not having employees. And I also, through the summer, we're rotationally grazing the herd/flock. So those summer times I can relate to, what Beth is saying. The summer is definitely the busier kind of hopping time of the year. But I would align with her in saying that, I really try to get at least 2 weeks a year, plus, some little overnight or like a weekend or even sometimes day trips make a world of difference. And I don't work full time on the farm. I also I'm a nurse on the other side of things. So, balancing like kind of the double work life, I think those vacations are kind of key for me in sanity as much as I can get it. So in the winter, it's much easier. I usually bring kind of the herd and flock a little more back to the home base where we can have some sacrifice areas. We typically, unfortunately, are not as cold as I would like. So sometimes we struggle with mud, which can be an issue. So we're not obviously on pasture all winter long or anything like that at this time. But it does allow for a little more flexibility in the winter months and sort of getting away, or say, asking my parents to maybe keep an eye on the place, in those, like a winter break is definitely a little easier. The summer break, though, really, we always take a week of vacation in the summer. And I know, this is, for me, was a crux of a family need, right? So in kind of working things out, it was a huge dissatisfier, I think, with farm life. And again, no one in my family's does farming, the whole farming thing. So trying to get every way to kind of understand that the seasonality and the needs of the farm, without driving people insane, was really important in growing my operation. And so that meant, being able to say, yes, we can still have a time in the summer, a vacation in the summer, I think was really important, because, to be able to tell people who aren't used to the farm life, we will never take another summer vacation, seemed like madness. But like, we're not down for that, just so you know. And so I think maintaining those healthy relationships. So I really made a conscious decision that, okay, we're going to do a week-long vacation every summer. And for me, that took, once I made the decision, like, okay, this is what we're going to be able to do, it was then saying, okay, what does the operation need to do to allow that to happen? Like, what does that need to look like? So really, I think it was connecting with the family and saying, when do we really want to do this? Do we have a favorite time or a favorite season? Like, does it matter if it's June, July, August? Like, and kind of understanding, I think the expectations of the family were really important for me, at least, in making plans. And then, so what we call it every year, we call it Christmas in July. So for us, that's when it's happened. And it kind of was a fun play on what people often say, around that season. So we take Christmas in July, and I use it for my weaning. So for me, we have lambs that we lamb late, so that we have better weather for it. So typically we're lambing end of April, sometimes into May. And that way, when it's time for Christmas in July, and again, sometimes the dates fluctuate a little bit, but really, I can bring everybody back to those barnyard spaces that we haven't been in since we left them, in the spring. And there's grass that's grown back, but I also just, I have hay available as need be, depending on the year. And I bring everybody back, and I split the moms and I split the babies, and everybody's just back at the barnyard where I have easy water. They have food already there. I set bales out as need be. And then I basically just need to have somebody, whether it's my parents again, or somebody, just kind of drop by, keep an eye on everybody, make sure like nobody slipped on their back or not doing well, or something's going on. And we go on vacation. And then when I come back, everybody's weaned. Glory, hallelujah, right? And I don't have to listen to a week of, everybody being unhappy with their life. And it's safer too for me. I've tried weaning in electric netting, not my favorite thing. People get out, I say people, sheep specifically, another form of people. Heads get stuck in netting, and I feel like it increases the danger a little bit more for the groups. And so being able, again, to come back into the barnyard where I have more permanent, farm fence, to me feels safer as well for everybody. And then by the time I get back, I'm kind of ready to go. I've had that vacation. My family feels more satisfied with being able to get away and kind of have that off-farm experience, and still feel like they got to do kind of something fun specifically in the summer. So for me, that's probably our flow and kind of the fun of Christmas in July. So
I love that. And the coupling with the weaning is the other side of that I absolutely love. It's like, take a time when you want to be away from the farm. Exactly. And go be away from the farm.
Let the crying take place when I don't have to listen to it every day.
Exactly. You guys will be fine. We'll be back. Yes. So Garret, what does a breakaway look like for you? You are on a dairy farm. The history of the dairy farm is that we never take a day off, right? How does that work for you guys?
That is the case. And if you're, what we found over the years, even before we really started the chocolate business as a open to the public, because for us, we in a sense are running two businesses in one location. We have a dairy farm, which has all the normal, hay season, you have everything going on that's normal, and we're open to the public. We have people coming in, day out. So for us, we have, over the years, it's been a slow process, but we have started to really look at our time, our schedules, starting with little things such as how long the day is. Can you shave a half hour here? Either someone can get up later, or are you done earlier? And one of the cool things you will usually do, the last couple of years, so between the four of us, just for the family, my younger brother, my mother, father, and myself, we in the summertime would all choose a week to take off. Off. And it doesn't mean you have to go on vacation or go anywhere, but you literally you don't pull in the farm driveway, it's off. And this year we actually are doing, we're continuing that, but January is usually our slowest month. There's no crops, there's nothing that has to be done. And after Christmas time, the chocolate shop's a little slower. So in January, we're all taking an additional week off. So actually next week, starting next Wednesday, I have a full week off, and it's really good. It's also good mentally to know as you're working through the year, and there's those, because it's going to happen, you're going to have 12, 15-hour days. It's good to know that in a sense you're banking this time that you can either plan to spend with family or do anything you want to. We always try and give everybody one day off a week. Now, sometimes that doesn't always happen depending on what's happening around the farm, but we try to, alternate. So Saturday, Sunday, my parents would have Monday. So at least even through our busiest times, someone has some time to catch up on sleep or just to take a personal day. And with our employees, we focus on their time, their work schedules. So that they're there for us when we're not there. We focus on making sure that they have their time off, their hours aren't quite as long as ours, but at the same time, because we really try to take care of them, so they're there for us when we want to take that time off. And I mean, throughout the other things we do is, especially in the last 2 to 3 years, as my younger brother and I, we've gotten married and we've both started families of our own, is to really look at some of the things we're doing day-to-day tasks and see if we can add something or take something away, keeping the same herd size, the same product, the same quality, but to see if there's other options, kind of broadening our horizon to other things that we could do that would benefit us. So that's kind of in a nutshell. It's a little bit we could do. I get into specifics, but actually one of the things this we just did is we milk an old-fashioned pails system, pneumatic pails, and in December I got a fourth pail. So instead of an hour and a half to milk, it takes me about 45 minutes. So that right there saves time twice a day for me. So it's the little things sometimes that add up at the end of the year.
That's a really big thing. I mean, that's huge.
Yes.
That's absolutely huge. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So this is an open question for all of you. Like, I'm curious. So we did just talk about times away, and I love that you mentioned this, Garret. Like, what kinds of time do you take, or other kinds of things that you do that are not working on the farm, that maybe don't mean that you're going away on vacation? You're not necessarily going out of state, or what other kinds of things do you do? Are there other kinds of things you do? I shouldn't presume that, but open question.
Yeah. Other things you do on the farm as an other
like other interests and other ways that you relax. I mean, like, are you a big reader? Or you fish? Do you like go and hunt? Do you like those kinds of things? What are the things that help us recharge even if we aren't actually leaving the farm?
Well, I can say this, and my wife would attest to this. I'm not the best relaxer in the world. Even on my day off, I tend to find myself doing firewood or doing something else. So that is something that I am working on as a person. But I mean, I'm into old cars, so I love going on the weekends. We go to a car show where we kind of work. We've learned to. So usually I would have Sunday off. We've learned to plan and make sure that we have something fun to go do on that day, so that it actually is relaxing. You show up Monday ready to go, and you're not tired from falling into the usual trap that I think most farmers and people that work like we do as well. I have a day off, so I'll just get this done. And then your day off slowly whittles away to not actually being a day off, and you don't get that rest that you need.
Yeah. I think it's easy to fall into that trap. I mean, I feel like even if I am a proponent of this for other people, I also fall into that trap just as much as anybody. And it has meant a lot to me to establish a new office space that I close the door on, which, yep, is like, nope, the workday is done. I think that some of those boundaries are really important for us to establish.
And
I think it is all about.
Oh, sorry.
Beth, go for it.
Oh, I just was going to piggyback on the boundaries concept. I mean, we just moved about 2 years ago off of a farm that we were farming and living on. That's 25 minutes away from our production farm. And, that really increased the length of our workday because we had a, 20 to 25 minute commute to get home. But now that we're more centralized and we just put a modular house behind the barn here on our property, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. Like, we're right there. We can either just quickly walk over and help somebody do something, or I can look out the window of where I'm washing my dishes and see the entrance of our farm store and see if people are there and need, but you have to set boundaries. And if you're at home, you're at home. It's been great to know that, that's the place where you can rest and cook a nice meal. And if you're home, then our employees know that we've just signed out for the day. And giving them the same, we try not to put in 12 or 14-hour days unless there's a cow out or something. We work in the summer from about 7 to 5. And all of our employees, we respect their work-life balance as well. We don't give ourselves, unfortunately, the same schedule that we give them. They do work 4 10-hour days and have 3 days off a week, which has worked really well. We've done that for a few years. Very important for us to set those boundaries for those folks. We're not as good about doing that for ourselves just because we're the owners. But we also might, on a sunny day, we might cut out at 4 o'clock or 4:30 and my husband and I might go for a nice afternoon bike ride. You have to grab those moments when you can. And if you have coverage on a Saturday and Sunday, then you've got coverage, and we're here as backup support for an emergency, but it's our time to have our time off too. So setting boundaries is key.
Yeah,
that's what I'll say.
Yeah, I would agree with Beth and say too that I think in some ways it's valuable to have those people in your lives that aren't on the farm, because they sort of give you that like reality check, like, where they can help question, hey, shouldn't we do this? Or, we need some extra time to do that. And so for me, I think that's been valuable as well, kind of having the family and friends in my life that at times like pressure me to do the other like non-farmy things. Sometimes that is a moment of stress. And I think over the years, not like I've been doing this forever, but over the years, I definitely think it's gotten much easier where, there are certain things I can say, nope, it's right. Like I should make time for this. This is really important. And other times when I can say, that's not going to fit with my priorities right now. It's not the best. Maybe it is something that I do need to spend time more working on. But I would say, even just having a campfire, maybe I finished with chores, for the day. And again, I don't live right at the farm, but being able to just put a campfire out there and enjoy the sights, the sounds of like being on the farm, to create, like, the farm doesn't always have to be a drag, right? Or like when I'm exhausted and I've been working on it, but to take a minute and like actually sit down and look at the view that I first fell in love with when we got it, right? Look at, oh my gosh, the sheep are just out there grazing. Like, that's fabulous. Like, yes, I know I just spent, 3 hours doing chores or whatever, but it feels so good to just sit down and watch the red-tailed hawk, or, just enjoy the view. So I think those on-farm moments, are something that I think I really enjoy, and you can create those moments, even if it's not like every single day. But then I also think for myself, I love to learn and be a kind of a lifelong learner. So on those off farm, like for me, I make a priority to always have a book by the nightstand, right? Like always be reading, or even sometimes just like there's a crossword there because I enjoy doing it, or a couple years ago I started learning another language, and so I just I have it on an app, and I, slow as molasses, I will probably never speak fluently, but like I to have that other thing that isn't farm related and it's not my regular job related, either, to spend kind of even just 10 minutes every day, not like a commitment of forever, but to spend that time, I think is really good for me mentally too.
Totally. I wanted to add in, I totally agree. Those things, it's not just the getting away, it's the sometimes taking a little tiny break just to use our brains differently. I've started to incorporate trying to do art a couple nights a week, and just, I'm exhausted. I'm not going to be outside anymore. It's dark. It's like the end of the day, and what a nice thing to just sit and paint or sit and draw or whatever, and very simple stuff, not that complicated. And just, I don't know why, but there's something about how that changes our brains, or my brain anyway. It actually makes me feel, it's like ruminating, it's like resting, even though I'm doing something and it's using a different part of my brain. And I find that to be really refreshing. Anyway, so I am curious. Sounds like you've all kind of come to this, but I'm just curious, have there been any like precipitating events or that, where you just said, no, I have to make a change? Or has this just sort of been coming on you all slowly? I'll just point at Garret.
Yeah.
So we know it's starting.
Well,
I think for myself and my husband, just getting out and away in nature and being physically active and, interacting with the natural world. I mean, before we were 100% farming, we operated a adventure travel business where we guided people in various places around the world, doing, physically, skiing and kayaking and hiking and trekking. And so that's just still part of our DNA. So we need to be away from the farm, even though it's our part of our genetics now, even though we weren't born into a farm family, but just, working on the land and raising these amazing animals and sharing good food with people. There's still a part of us that just needs the mountains and just doing things with our body that's not the grind of farming. So, for Bruce, I'll speak for him, he needs to be skiing, as part of his downtime. For me, I have some physical limitations now because of a some genetic issues going on. But so I'm finding different ways. I'm swimming, or I'm, taking longer walks and going on bicycle rides. So I can't do some of those things. So for us, we have to find the thing that, gives us the joy outside of the farm. So that's all I'll say.
For me, last January, my wife and I had a little baby girl, and when they say being a father changes, your perspective on life, that definitely for us, that changed everything. It wasn't just about getting up and getting to work and getting this done and getting that done. It's really, this last year, I've learned a lot personally about taking more time and just small little things, maybe getting home a little earlier. Just it's that really has been the biggest thing for me, that changed something that makes you want to spend more time or focus on having more time off versus focusing on getting every little task done. Because what I've learned is if you focus on tasks, you'll be there all day. And if you have to change your mindset about what your real priorities are. And that's what I've learned in the last year.
Yeah, and I don't know that I necessarily had a precipitous sort of event either that necessarily catapulted me into thinking about time off, aside to say that again, coming in as a first generation farmer, and I've worked some hospice care before, and kind of those previous experiences of understanding like time off is valuable, time with family is really important, or the things that you value at least is vital for when you look back, you want to be like, not only did I do what I wanted to do or liked to do or enjoyed to do, but do I have a lot of regrets about the way I sort of chose to live my life? And, that's kind of what ended up pushing me, I think, more towards farming. But I think it also has helped me in farming to sort of prioritize having some of those boundaries in realizing, the importance that I wanted to place on my family being happy. And I've heard, whether it's on podcasts or reading or like going to Ranching for Profit, for example, when they say, if you want other generations, if you want the next generation to kind of follow in your footsteps or want to be interested in agriculture, you can't make it look like a prison, right? Like no one wants to go to prison and stay there forever. And if we make our farms that, then we will never attract anyone, whether it's a first generation farmer or our own family, into the field. And so for me, that perception of like what farming can be is equally as important to me, to make sure that I'm representing what agriculture should or could look like to somebody else. So I think that's part of it for me in why we've chosen to prioritize that time off.
I will add a comment about, thank you, Garret, for, I'm so excited for you and your baby girl. Now, Bruce and I have an 18 and a 20-year-old, and I know Jenn has an adult son, and, and there's just transitions that, I remember carrying some of my kids around in the front pack to go check on the cows or the sheep. And at some point it becomes dangerous, number one. And number two, it's also a lovely addition to be able to farm with your kids. So, but as they grow up, you cannot take back that time. If there's an important soccer game and you really can set yourself up to go to that, when our kids were, doing their sports or going, had a musical performance, you just got to go. You got to figure out how you can make that work, even though they know that you're working really long hours and farming is hard, and but and long hours sometimes, but everybody has to navigate, having a family and a farm, the way that works for them, but you just can't take back the time. So,
Well
What about you,
said.
Jen?
I would, well said. It's very interesting because in the time that I've been farming, so my son is not interested in farming, and it has never been particularly. And so he wasn't someone who came out and did chores with me ever. But I definitely felt as he grew up, that I had to make some choices sometimes about whether to be a good farmer or a good mom. And I really tried to be a good mom because we do end up, especially if we're small and we don't have employees and help that much, if we're solo operators, and we can't take that time. We can't get that time back. And, talking with my son, who's 25 now, I was just recently talking with him about that. And I sort of said, boy, I do wish I had been able to be there for you more. I felt like I was out doing a lot of farming stuff when I should have been home. And he was like, no, I don't have that memory. Like, you came to my games. Like, that was what mattered to me. And I was like, oh, good. Oh, good. It worked. Maybe I picked right, maybe not. But so this sort of leads into, like, well, as Jessica brought up, and also I'm kind of hearing this from Garret too, like I'm hearing it from all of us. Is there a different dynamic between the sort of first generation, we're going to try to establish healthy patterns, and also the multi-generational, but now we realize we really want the generations to come back. Like, I think there are different places on this continuum of whether our farms continue. How do we create these situations where people do want to come back? And I guess, Garret, you're a good one to speak to that because you have stayed on the farm.
Yeah. Well, I grew up with my parents on the farm, and actually originally, the place where we are now, we actually built on 2012, but the original farm my grandfather started on 1964 was 120. It was a much larger dairy operation, and that's what I grew up on. And I think one of the things they always did for me is they always allowed freedom, and I don't know, it was fun. We would even remember my parents would, we would go set up like a tent in the backyard. Like even if a cow was calving, you were there late at night waiting for some cow to give birth, right? It always seemed fun. We would make popcorn, and I that's something I want to do for my daughter someday. That it's give her the opportunity, even if she doesn't want to say go into the business, that's her choice, but at least make it so they look back and they don't go, oh, that was a drag having to go to the barn with dad. It's something that you could look forward to. There's memories, and that's what I want to build and put forward. And if she chooses to continue that, and my younger brother the same way, he has a young son, and him and I talk back and forth about what we could do for that next generation, and hoping that they want to be a part of it. But even if they're not, it was something that was, hey, that was kind of cool.
I think some of it's too just having those conversations, right? I mean, again, I don't know, Garret, like about you or, and your wife, maybe the conversations that you have, but I think a lot of it is just saying, asking, like, what do you like? Do you like being on the farm at all? Do you want to help sometimes? Do you want to just not have the pressure of helping? Do you like coming to the farm and hanging out, but you don't want to do chores? Like, do you like coming to the barn and we sleep in a tent during during lambing in the barn because we don't have a house on the property, but do you like that, or like ixnay? Like, I would never want to do that. And so I think some of it too, are you asking those questions? Like, for me, it's like, am I asking those questions, or am I making assumptions? Or even, like with my other half, like, am I making an assumption about something that they will or won't like to do on the farm that might not even be reality, or what is or isn't important, which, kind of led us to do like Christmas in July. But I think some of it's just in taking the time to have the conversation.
Yeah, I would agree that communication is the utmost importance in any business, whether or not it's family, your employees, everything, and that is something that no one is I don't think is ever perfect at it, but it is something that we always try and do the best we can.
So I'm just like back on I think you said this, Garret, I wrote it down, the decision to make it happen.
Yep.
So it's a decision, right? Like I'm just thinking about all the times I have not set up systems. I mean, we can set up systems, like we just have to decide to set up systems. So one of the things, I know that there are various, seasons for all of us that are, definitely tougher than other seasons in the sheep world. That's so often lambing season. And it was outside of my capacity to even think about being away for lambing. And I went to Ranching for Profit school and then did the follow-up, and the follow-up, it was a short window to choose the follow-up. And there was a meeting that was going to be away for 3 days in the middle of lambing. And that was beyond my comprehension. But I said, well, no, I'm deciding to do this other thing. So now I have to figure out how the heck to make it happen. And I mean, so we talked about Christmas in July, but like, what are some of these other ways, like when we decide, what systems have you changed? Do you do things at a different time? Is there different equipment? Like, what have you done once you decided to make it work? What kinds of things have you done to actually make it work? Open question.
Well, if for a little bit about us, one of the things that I think a lot of times people, especially in businesses like ours, is we have a tendency to think, well, that's how some so-and-so did this, or this is how it was started. The great thing about systems is you can try something else. If it doesn't work, you can always go back to that system. So, it's kind of like I was saying, we went from using 3 milking machines to 4. Now, if I found out that for some reason doesn't work, I can always go back to 3. But if I find out it works, well, maybe in 6 months I'll get good at that. Maybe I can try another one. So there's 5. You can always kind of adapt. And, as in everything in life, about 95% things don't work, but maybe the other 5% that you do might be the thing that at the end of the year, you're like, wow, I was home on Friday nights at 5:30 instead of 7. Sometimes it's those tiny little things that end up to the biggest. At least that's what I've seen. Because I mean, with the number of animals you have, whether or not sheep, chickens, cows, and anything, you're locked. You're in a sense, you're committed to caring for them in the same manner. But man, if you can do tiny little things here and there, you can keep the existing farm, what you have, and it makes life easier. And in a way, it's better for your animals because you're less stressed. You're not as tired. Maybe you had breakfast that morning, so you have a little clearer thought. And I don't know. I that's what we're trying to do for us, anyways.
In our last session, there was some mention made of low stress livestock handling and transport. And I have to say that the times when I personally have made the worst low stress, or in the reverse of that, the most high stress animal handling decisions, it's usually when I'm exhausted. And that is usually a great, that is a great prompt to say, I need a break. I need to go away. And maybe that is for an hour to actually go get breakfast. You're right. Or sometimes it's like, that's just a sign that we're beyond being able to think clearly. And there's health ramifications to this too. I mean, how many farm families have been really torn up because somebody got hurt because they didn't take downtime. And what an interruption that can be in a family.
Yeah. And I think it's also somewhat of a mindset, at least for me, it really was, as far as being willing to be okay if my full expectations and perfectionistic self, like if something didn't go quite right to plan, or I wasn't the perfect grazer, or I didn't, I moved every 2 days, or I, laid out a big chunk because I knew like this is really important. I need to do X, Y, and Z. And so, this is what it needs to look like for that to happen, or I don't get every project done on the farm, or you know what, maybe we're gonna put hay out during this session, and I count it as building soil and not as wasting money. And it's a change in my perspective that I have to take, because for your own sanity, I think to your point, like in changing our systems and being willing, like Garret said, to try something, and also understanding that like it's okay if it didn't work out right. Like you can always change it next year, or, whatever. Maybe I don't build the farm fast enough, or I, didn't make money, or whatever the case might be. But what other things did you do that were important and not giving them like zero value in your life?
We
Totally.
joke that our farm does not stay the same from year to year. We're always making modifications. We're always trying to look for efficiencies. And sometimes it's a $10,000 capital expense, but over the course of time, that will prove to be better on people's bodies. Going from physically manually pulling chicken tractors to putting 500 chickens in a big mobile range coop that gets pulled by a tractor that takes 10 minutes. So just tweaks that you have to commit, and we hope those decisions are in the right direction, not like, oh gosh, that didn't work and we just spent $10,000 on that particular thing. But you can also, make incremental, like the extra milking machine. And we do a lot of that too. And that's what's also kind of neat about having multiple employees that have, they might have worked at another farm and they come with some other ideas. Often, we'll take their suggestions. We've done some lean manufacturing trainings, and that's been really helpful. So we're in, all farmers should constantly be trying to improve their system so that it's better for the farm, better for the bottom line, and better for our bodies and our, psychology of, it's not about doing it fast, it's about doing it effectively. And if that, if it shaves time, then there's more time for family at the end of the day, like everybody has said. So, anyway.
Totally agree. And so I just I wondered this question for years. So I'll post it. I'll pitch it to you guys. How do we normalize this conversation? Because the conventional pushback is that we are not working hard enough if we take any time off. It's maybe socially acceptable to take Sunday afternoons off, but what happens, but not necessarily to go away. And how do we talk about this without, I don't want to say without getting pushback, but how do we talk about this, that it's a normal part of being a healthy farmer and a healthy farm and a profitable business and all of these desirable things? Do you guys have any thoughts about that?
I think we have to share it. I think we have to share what we're doing, share our success in being away from the farm, the benefits that it brings to us. I mean, just even doing things like having this session where, we're having the conversation, we're sharing our passion for it in a way, for making time, I think is really important. And I know I get caught in the trap too, like when my old crotchety farmer comes and drops off my hay sometimes, that he, we'll talk about, I'm like, yeah. And I really, sometimes I've had those realizations, like I should be like, wow, really? You don't take any time off? Like I do, right? Like sometimes I think, why do I give into the almost peer pressure of just being like, yeah, me too, right there? And I'm like, why? but I've done that in past years because I think I kind of, but really being able to, I think, just say, think
It's
about taking
okay.
some time off is good for you.
I agree with that, and I think with people in agriculture, even if for most farmers, and it doesn't matter what type of farming you're doing, at the core of it, you are trying to run a business that you're hoping can make some profit or pay for itself. And I think if we show that saving time and energy usage, anything like that, can actually better your business. Because I think most farmers are trying to do the best job they can, get their crops in or whatever they're doing. And if you can show that actually using some of these practices actually not only does it enhance your own life, but it actually is better for the business than just constantly being overtired and just getting up and doing the same thing every day.
And how much do we have to buck an identity problem to change this narrative too? That's, yeah, I continually wondered that, because so if we are feeling like we're trying to be more healthy, we're trying to have other interests that are not just reading farming books, but learning languages and going swimming and those other things, and we aren't necessarily talking about it, like if we are in an awkward position of feeling like we need to downplay it, does that become an identity issue of like, I don't feel like I'm being a good farmer if I'm not working all the time and talking about how much I work all the time? Maybe this is a challenge. Beth, I hope that you post some Costa Rica pictures and you're like, hey, farmers need to take some time off, and look at me, like I'm doing it.
Well, thank you for the vote of confidence. I thought about doing it and then I forgot about it because I was, busy on vacation, but I think I will. I think I will do it retroactively and just say what a wonderful opportunity I had. So thank you for the push over the edge. I'll do that when we get off of our talk.
Tag your it.
Yeah.
But I find myself self censoring in that sometimes, where I just go, okay, I'm not working right now, I'm doing this other thing right now that I'm excited and pleased about, but am I a good farmer? I'm not going out and doing a night check at 11 o'clock. Like, am I a good farmer? So anyway, I'm not just saying this to share my own questions about my identity, but really, like, this is something that I think that we all struggle with a bit, is the culture of working all the time. And yeah, so we are coming close to, we've got just a few minutes left. I'm just curious, like, what are things about, being a whole person and being a whole farmer that come up for you guys that I haven't asked about? What should we be talking about if we want to be not just farmers, but whole people?
I would say managing that time off, like we were talking about earlier, really making sure that even if it's a half hour, take 10 minutes, but that 10 minutes is actually, you're using it in a useful manner to better yourself. That's what that would be my only input that I've learned myself. Sometimes it's hard to do, but it is vitally important for our lives and everyone around us, including our animals.
Yeah. I think if you, and I'm not very good at this, and I will give Jenn Colby a little toot of a horn that she's really good at this. I know that personally, but she schedules it in, takes the time for the yoga and the tea and the reflection. And you just, if it means setting an alarm, like, oh, it's my time to check out and walk away, get up from the desk and walk around the farm for 20 minutes. But if I need to get better at, ringing the little bell, reminding myself to take a walk or to do some stretches or whatever. I think you have to schedule it, like Garret says, or by gosh, you can't take it back. If it was yesterday and you didn't do it, yesterday's gone. So there you have it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me, it's thinking about even to, if I go to whether it's a family function like Christmas dinner or whatever, what does everyone have to talk about with me except the farm? Right? Like, so asking yourself that question, like, what is it that I can talk about, and purposefully making myself not talk farm, like find that thing about the other person, like, and really being intentional, which is, I think, sometimes hard, especially with introverted. I'm not, but a lot of farmers are, I know, and making yourself find that in the other people that you're around, whether it's paying attention to what's happening in the media, maybe even if it's not your biggest interest, or saying, hey, what sports do you do? Like, I've taken up biking, or I've taken up swimming, or I like to hike, or whatever it is, and finding those other things to talk about, because it's really easy just to settle into like giving the, like, your mind still farming when you're not farming.
Totally true. And totally true. And to just reply back to one of the things that Beth pointed out, I've actually found it to be incredibly necessary in my life in the first quarter of the year to schedule a quarterly break, at least 3 quarters out of the year, and pick a week to block off. And even if we cancel, even if we move those, it's really important, because all of a sudden November will have come and there won't even have been a long weekend. And I need to do that. And my husband needs to do that, because we have to do that together, because we both are very busy doing various things. It's not just the farm side. So I just want to thank you all so much. We're at the top of the hour. What a great conversation. And I just really appreciate all of your time and the examples that you're setting, for all of us, just figuring it out in all of our different systems and all the different ways that we do to take time off. And yeah.
Thank you for having us. It was so nice to,
absolutely.
get a chance to meet Beth and Garret as well. And hopefully everyone who attends was able to enjoy it.
Yeah. Thank you for hosting us, and thank you for meeting you all. This was a great experience. Thank you.
Awesome. Field trip to get chocolates in Connecticut.
Yes.
Everyone, come on, let's do it.
Yeah. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you both. Thank you all.
Thank you, speaker and panelists, for sharing so much wisdom with us today. If anyone knows me, they know that I had a mute or unmute button and how to display so much discipline in not hitting it. I really enjoyed this conversation, so thank you so much. This ends to the Friday of our conference, and so we look forward to seeing you all back tomorrow morning. We're going to start the morning off with a coffee side chat with the Canadian Pastor Prophet and the Grass Whisperer. So please join us after chores. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Colleen.